So can you guys see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've done here is I've just pulled a template together. It's not really a basic tech pack. It's sort of, but it's not easy and it's not hard. So I've chosen a jacket tech pack to show you guys. And as you can probably see, it's got the Topshop brand in there. This isn't a design that I did for Topshop. This is just to show you, if you worked for a commercial fashion brand on a tech pack, they expect to have the brand logo on the tech pack that you're specifically designing for. That's just so the factory knows who the product is for. So on this first page of the tech pack, this is where you would have your colour cards, which I'm going to colour a card up and show you guys how to do it. But as you can see, it's got this template box where it has all the breakdown information of the product. So usually we give every design a style name. So for instance, I'm just going to call this Vogue puffer jacket. Description, it's an oversized puffer jacket. So you just basically put in what the product is. It's quite self-explanatory. And then fabric. So I'm just going to put 100% polyester. And then you usually put the weight as well. So I'm just going to put 220 grams because that's just a standard that we use throughout the industry in a outer fabric poly. Then the lining as well. So we always put the lining on there as well. So you guys might not know any fabric information just because obviously you're students and you've not had that much industry experience. So these areas you might not necessarily know, but it just shows you the information that you need to put on your tech pack for the factory to be able to understand, right, it's this style, it's made from this fabric, it's got that liner in it, and it's got this filler weight in the quilting. So I'm just going to put 210T poly liner, and then filler weight again. I'm just going to do with a standard 240 grams. Then you always put your sample size. So whatever you want the factory to make this product a sample in, you have to put the sample size. So obviously for a women's, where I work, it's usually a size 8 for a sample. Some of them vary. If you're working for a plus size company such as Very or Live Unlimited, they usually ask for a size 16, a women's wear sample. For a men's, it's usually a size medium. I'm not sure on plus size for men. It might be a large or an XL. So once you put all that information in, you need to put the date as well so that the factory is aware of when you've sent that tech pack over. The date's very important because in the industry we work with critical paths. And I mean, that's a whole different conversation, is a critical path, and it can be quite boring. But basically that's where they track. You basically have an Excel document and you've got lots of different areas about that product on a critical path, and also the making process of it. So you'd have the CAD, a screenshot of the CAD, then you'd have sort of the fabric, what it's made out of, and then you'll have a dates inputted, so when the fabric will be cut, when it'll be sewn together, so when the sample will be finished, and when the sample will be sending to the UK or wherever you are in the world. And we call these critical paths because they've got deadline dates, and the factory have to reach those deadlines because it's something you've both agreed within together. So I mean, I can maybe do a workshop on a critical path because it does need quite a long it needs properly explaining for you to understand how it works. But yeah, that's why you need to have a date on a tech pack. It's so important. Also a season. Really, you should have a season on there as well, which I've just missed off. So seasons are usually say like autumn autumn winter 24 or spring summer 25. So you'd usually have something like that as well on your tech pack. So I can just put that there. So I've just copied and pasted this CAD drawing. It's in black and white at the moment. I'm just going to get rid of some of these key. Oh, that didn't work. Some of these key measurements. So I'm just clicking the ungroup button there because I'd grouped my CAD together. I have to zoom in. Okay, so I've got rid of all of that. So I've decided that I'm going to do 4 colorways of this one product. So because color number 1, we always set our colorways underneath our drawing here, and I'll just color this in for you. So if I select these areas, I'm gonna have to zoom in again, sorry. So I'm just gonna select these areas. And then using my selection tool, I'll click on the color and the CAD's changed to color. Make sure you've got your outline, your black outline, so that you can still see the style. So that's the front view. And then I've got the back view down here, which I'm just gonna copy and paste up here as well. So basically this front page is just like an overview page, and it's so that the factory can just see what style it is, see how many colorways you've got of that style, so they know there's 4 colorways. And what the factory will have to do as well, they'll have to action lab dips for these 4 colors on the fabric base. So it's really key to have the colorways on this first page as well. So there, I've coloured the front and back. So now you've got a coloured front and back view of the product on the overview. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this down here. And we only ever really do the front views for the colourways because you've got the back view there. The factory know that the back view is going to be the same color as the front view, unless it was a style where you've got sort of the green on the front and then you've done like a black back view, then you would probably have to input your front and your backs down here if they all varied in different colors. But because this is just a solid colorway, you can just add the front view down at the bottom. So that's the first colorway, and then what you have to do is you have to just copy and paste it across, and then you can probably guess what I'm going to do. Color this in black because the second colorway is black. So that's too dark, so you've lost the stitching. So if you just select a lighter shade of dark so that you can just still see the stitching, and make sure that the outline is on pitch black as well, so that you can still see the outline of the CAD. Then we have that second colorway, and then third. So I'm just selecting it again. You're just basically repeating yourself a little bit at this bottom part of the page. But it just gives the factory a visual of the colour. Like that. So I won't bore you and do the fourth one. I'll just explain what a SKU code is. So you might not have heard about a SKU code, but basically SKU is short for stock keeping unit. It is a unique code used by retailers to identify and track a product. So every design that you do in the industry has to have its own specific SKU code. It's usually it's usually 8 characters. So it's because this is for Topshop, I imagine it would be like TSP 1, and then it's usually got a dash, and then because it's a jacket, it's probably going to be GK 02 or something like that. So again, you would just, so then this next one would probably go up a number, and then so on. So then each colorway can be tracked through the factory. So then that's basically the overview page and how it should look for a factory, just to see when you send it over to the factory. They know what product it is, they know what fabric it's made from, they know how many colorways there are, they know who it's for as well. It's got the brand name on there. So this this template here, you actually need to carry it over. You need to copy and paste it on every sheet of the tech pack. And that is because in a factory, sometimes when they print these tech packs off, I mean, some of them do print them off because they put them in the files, and then, but because they're so busy, sometimes they don't staple things together, they might lose a sheet. So it's very important that you copy and paste this information on every sheet. So having, well, I'll have to change that actually, because it's not front, it's just the back view. Sorry, front view. So the front view, so this is where you can start adding your annotations onto the CAD. So I'm going to start off by putting the back neck label. We usually have a size, pip, and branded swinger attached to internal neckline. I'm going to make that a bit smaller so I can fit them all on. And then usually just put a line, put an arrow to where that is. And even though that's on the internal, I always put it on the front page because, I mean, it's just a creature of habit, to be honest. But there is, I will get onto this page, which is the internal view of the jacket. So you can see that's where like the hanger loop is, the size pip and the branded label is. So it's okay to repeat yourself on a tech pack. So it's okay to put it there and put it there and even put it there sometimes. Quite a lot of people do work in that way, where they just copy and paste the same information over on each page, just to make sure the factory doesn't miss anything, any key information. So you can see some measurements on here as well. These are just some key measurements that I've put on the CAD. So the factory know the depth of the placket, the depth of the funnel neck, depth of the pockets, and the quilting. These measurements will also be on the size chart, but it's good to have these measurements on the tech pack as well, because sometimes, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but when the factory's looking at something, looking at a tech pack and a design, you know, sometimes whoever's making the size charts, which is usually the garment tech, like a garment technician who works in the same company as you, sometimes they might have missed off some of these key measurements, and it's important it's important for you to put them on as well as the garment tech to put them on. And these are just standard measurements actually that are used throughout the industry for this type of product. So even though I've put 6 centimeters there and I've got this red sort of line to indicate, right, that's 6 centimeters width, you also do need to write it still. So because I'm going to call this grown on funnel neck, because it's not detachable, it's sewn on. So another way of saying that is grown on funnel neck. And then I put the 6 cm total width or depth. It's up to you, but they understand width or depth. You know, it's pretty much the same thing. And then again, I'll just get you can either use the arrow tool or you can just point to each annotation like this, whichever you feel is easiest. So then I'm also going to mention that the sleeve is a setting, because again, certain styles might have a raglan sleeve, they might have a dropped shoulder where the line would finish here, but this is it's quite, you know, it sits well on the shoulder. So I call this a setting sleeve. Just point to what I'm talking about. So then I'll talk about the quilt now. So just going to say the sleeve has, so it's got 3 times equally spaced, sorry. It has three equally spaced quilt lines, single needle, top stitched only, because sometimes on quilts you can get like a double top stitch, single, and I also need to put that it's horizontal as well. And then again, you have to point to what you're speaking at, what you're taking notes on. And then, so I'm just making my way around the CAD basically, and just making sure that I'm identifying every aspect about the garment. So now I'm moving on to the pockets. So I've put shell fabric, welt pockets. So they're 4 centimeters wide. Again, it's got single needle top stitching, and it's got 1 times press stud fastening, which is concealed because you can't see it. And then I can also mention that the pockets are lined with 210T lining, poly lining. So you can also line pockets with fleece, or like a micro fleece or something like that, or a mesh. It just really depends on what design you're creating. But this is just to show you, you know, what key information you can put on your tech pack. That's really going to help the factory be able to make the product exact to how you want it. So the hem on the cuffs, we call this a duvet hem, because there's no stitching here. It's just basically folded up on itself. So the body hem is folded with single needle top stitching. You can just put that there. So then you can, I'm going to move on, I'm going to put it here. So the front placket has 5 times concealed press studs. It's 6 centimeters wide with single needle top stitching. So again, I'm just going to point to where I'm referring to, maybe just there. And another thing as well is to try and not make your annotations sort of cross over. So don't do that basically where the lines are crossing, because factories just get really confused quite easily. It's just easy. Just make sure that you can separate each. It doesn't really matter where your annotation is. I mean, you could, you know, if you ran out of room, you can move it down here. It's just make sure these lines do never cross. Because I've had issues before where, you know, back in my early days starting out in my career, where you know, I just put them willy-nilly around the card and I had the lines going everywhere. And when I look back now, it was so messy. So just be as clear and as transparent as you can with your annotations. So next one. So there's I mean, you can't see it here, but it's you need to write it on. I need to write it here. So there's a hem draw cord. I'll put so bungee draw cord to hem with metal toggle and eye. So I've put bungee draw cord to hem with metal toggle and eyelets. I'm just going to put internal here. Internal bungee draw cord, yeah. So that's because obviously it's inside the garment, but you need to make sure that, well, for this instance, I need to make sure that I'm making them aware of that at this stage, that there's a draw cord here. And then, so under the placket, there'll be a zip. So I'm just going to put number 5, plastic Derlin zip. With a circular zip puller. DTM, which means dye to match. So I want it dyed to match the main outer fabric. So like I've said before, some of this information where I've put about the zip, I'll have to transfer that information onto the liner as well, onto the internal view of the card. And I think that's it actually. I've highlighted all the key areas, all the key information about this front view of the garment. So then I just need to copy. So I should mention as well, with every tech pack, I always put keep this work confidential. And because the brand's for Topshop, they always have like a copyright section here on the tech pack, and then it's usually whichever brand you're designing for. It's just to protect that design. And usually factories that you work with, they keep everything confidential. The company that I work for now is a global leading manufacturer, China company, and we have 2-year policies with our customers. So who I design for, we can't share any information before, like within 2 years from when the design has been created. So I've just copied it over that template, and I'm just going to put back view here. I know I've not done it in capitals, but it's fine. So some of this information, like the swing ticket, I just copy and paste it onto there as well. again about the equal quilting, which can go here. And then maybe the hem, internal bungee, draw cord to hem. Like there, and then I'll just put it on the liner one as well. Just conscious of time. So yeah, the back view, because there's not that much really going on in this design, it's quite simple. Sometimes if it just mirrors the front view of the card, sometimes I just put back view to mirror front view. And it's just a little note for them. They know that the back looks like the front, basically. So I'll just copy and paste that over to the liner page. Internal view. And then, so I've pulled this internal bungee draw cord to hem with metal toggle and eyelets. So you can be specific, and you can put 2 times eyelets, and then again just make sure you draw a line to what you're saying. And then here we've got facing panels to be main outer fabric. And then these are the 5 concealed press studs. You can also put actually two positioned on the funnel neck, 3 times equally spaced on the body. You've got your hanger loop. So you've got your hanger loop, your size pip, your branded label, and swing ticket to be attached. So here I've just added an internal pocket. So I'm just going to mention that internal pocket with shell fabric binding to the pocket opening, which is this that I'm referring to. And then, I mean, here sometimes you might find piping as just a little design detail, but I'm just going to leave it plain. I'm not going to, it's quite a basic puffer jacket, so I'm not going to bother adding that in there. And then this last page, so I mean, some brands do it and some don't, but I always do it. It's called a colour page, and it helps the factory to identify the colour of the trims, the colour. Obviously, they know the colour of the fabric because it's on your first page overview, but here it just breaks down the colours for each detail of the product. So colourway 1, obviously, I've broken it down. So you've got your main outer fabric, your lining, your zip colour, your zip puller colour, and then your conceal press stud colours as well. So they're just the key materials used on this product. So I basically just copy and paste this down here, because you've got the titles for each column here at the top, so they know that's your main outer fabric. Liner, again, just do that here. Zip. Sometimes on zips, they might have a different zip puller. It might be silver, it might be gunmetal. It just really depends on the design. Concealed press studs as well. They might be like a silver or a gunmetal again. Usually they are, but sometimes you can get plastic ones where they're dye to match. So I usually I'll just copy and paste this one down here as well. So, sorry. So again, setting something out like this, it's really transparent for the factory, just to have a glance and be like, what color is the zip? Oh, it's green, it's black, it's nude. It just gives them a quick, well, they just know. They just know what color the trims are, because when you send a product like this as well to a factory, it's not just the fabric or making it that they have to worry about, it's the sourcing as well, and sourcing can take up to 2 weeks. So they need all of this information on the tech pack straight away. It can't be sort of drip fed. You need to just put everything on there so they know they've got everything to really get going and making the style. So I think I've obviously not done colorway 4 because you get the gist, but I think really for this one now, everything, all the key areas that I needed to show you, I think I've done now. So if it's okay, if you've got any questions, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Perfect. Do you want to put them in the chat if you don't want to talk anybody? But this is where you've got Emily for the rest of the session now to think about your brands, think about what you're doing, dive a little bit in specifics for you, share the screen a little bit, try and divide the time up between you all. Who's going to go first?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So recently, I'm just looking at one of my tech packs now. So do you know when you're adding like stitches and stuff, like do you add stitches onto your tech packs all the time or not all the time? Because when I tend to do it, I add all the stitches in.
Yeah, usually I do it. I add it all. If you can put it in, well, I was conscious about time tonight, so I know there was areas that I didn't mention about the stitching, but it's very important to put all your stitching information on there as well, because sometimes it could just be a single needle, it could be a double needle top stitch. The hem could be, it could be like folded or a French seam or something like that. It really depends on the type of products, but the more information you can put on a tech pack, the better for the factory just to follow.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just going on from that then, would that be a separate sheet for stitching, or would that just be on the overall where all your annotations was?
Yeah, it would just be on where all the annotations are, so you can just pinpoint. You could just put a comment, if all the top stitching is single needle, you could even just put a comment and put an arrow to the stitching and just say all top stitching on this product to be single needle.
And would you just put the annotation, or would you do the symbols of what the stitch would be? Do you know when they've got
yeah,
they've got like an image of what the stitch is?
Yeah, so you should draw your stitching on the CAD drawing, like I did with my quilt stitching. So all your stitching should be on the CAD, and then obviously you can just draw an annotation and an arrow to the stitching.
Yeah, like have you seen them? I don't know what you would call it, but it's like a visual of how the seam is,
yeah,
and then
what you're saying.
What are they called?
Yeah, is it just well, it's just like a stitching like a stitching overview maybe, or something like that, where you've just got like
2 lines and a fold over with a thing down it.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, not necessarily, because the factory know how to finish. usually when you're working with someone who, you know, a pattern cutter or a machinist, they usually know how to finish a seam off,
Right.
because of, you know, that's just basic knowledge that they'll need to be able to make products. So usually we don't have, I mean, I've never had to identify exactly how a seam is finished,
Right.
unless it was sort of like a French seam finish, or if it just had binding to the seam. Yeah, that's enough for the factory to understand how to sew it together.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Emily's got a hand up. Emily?
Hi. My question is, do you know, like when you were doing the colours and they
Yeah.
were like from Pantone? So I'm doing like a woven tweed that's got like different colours in it. How would I like put that into a tech pack? Would I just take a photo of the sample?
Yeah, so I should have explained about Pantones as well. So, I mean, you can just do a Google, and if you know the Pantone color, or if you know if you've got an idea of a color, so nude, you could just put nude Pantone TCX in Google search, and it'll come up with different Pantone colors. You can actually buy a Pantone booklet as well, but they are quite expensive. They're a few £100s, and they've got all the industry standard Pantone colors. Each season that does get updated with new colors, so you kind of have to keep on top of it and reorder the new season colors for the Pantone references. But you can just do a Google search. But in regards to what you're doing, Emily, is it a tweed? Did you say?
Yeah, it's tweed woven.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can take a picture of the tweed fabric, and you can just pop it onto your computer, like transfer it onto your computer from your phone, and then just take a screenshot of the tweed, so the factory or whoever's making it can see, it's that fabric, that's what it looks like, that's the pattern of the tweed, they're the colors. And then obviously if you've got a fabric swatch of the tweed, you can send that to whoever's making it, the factory, or say the factory for this instance. Then they, you know, if they've got a physical swatch of your fabric tweed, they can then go off and source it.
She's sourcing it herself though, Emily.
Oh,
She's
right.
getting it made,
I was just
handmade.
about to say, so if I had
Yeah,
my
so-
fabric, would I send that with the tech pack and be like, I want you to do it in this?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
you just send that together. And then for your colour CADs as well, because you've scanned that, do you know how to create a colour swatch on Illustrator to be able to colour CAD, make the colour CAD into the, with the...
Yeah, but I've not really been on Illustrator this year because I've been on placement, but
Right, okay.
I could if I remind myself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
I think we're going to run some workshops for the Illustrator actually in the makerspace, so that could refresh you, Emily.
Please, thank you.
Brilliant.
Okay, anybody else? Any other questions? Bido, you've been quiet.
No, I think you went through it quite well, and given me a lot of like extra tips that I probably wouldn't have done before. I think if I do have a question, it's more probably towards like the logistics side of, obviously from your experience working with manufacturers, how long does it usually take for them to actually, depending obviously on the product, but let's say they need to source the specific fabric or the specific zip that you want to use. From your experience, what sort of varying times do you usually get?
So lead times, I usually give a lead time of, for sourcing, it depends really what it is. If it's fabric, I usually give 7 to 10 days. And trims as well, actually, I give them a lead time of 7 to 10 days. So within that time period of a week to 10 days, they should have the fabric and the trims to hand. And then creating a sample, I usually give a deadline of 2 weeks. So these weeks all add up. So you've given them 7 to 10 days, let's say 10 days for the first bit, sourcing. Then you've got 2 weeks for a sample. So you're coming up to just over 3 weeks,
Yeah.
3.5 weeks. And then obviously you have to take into consideration shipping as well. So them sending that sample to you, which can take, depending on where you're sourcing it in the world. From Turkey, it's usually, a couple of days, but then China can also send packages, which is like express delivery. So that you can usually receive that from China within a couple of days as well. But you just have to add all of these like areas up to finally get a date to when you should have a sample in your hand. But I think you need to give dates to factories, and you need to be really on it, because they're getting tech packs from, you're not only their main customer. Well, you're not their only customer. They'll have bigger customers that have got massive bulk production orders, and they're the money makers for their business. So they're going to focus more on them. And because if you're ordering a small order quantity of 100 or 300 pieces, you're kind of going to be pushed to the back, because they're going to think, well, I'm not making loads of money off you. I've got this other customer who's got, they want to do 1,000 units or 2,000 units. So I think you just need to be really straight with them and say, look, this is my deadline. You need to work to it, because, you're going to them for business just as much as the other people are.
So do you basically just, it's expected from yourself, for example, you just send it from your email, as soon as you send the tech back together, you set deadlines straight away?
I always
do. They usually agree with them, or are they usually quite
sometimes it can vary, really. I mean, it really just depend on their timelines. When it comes up to Chinese New Year as well, they've got a lot of projects that they need to finish off, and sometimes they can't finish your project in time, so then they go off on Chinese New Year, and then when they come back, it's all manic because they're trying to catch up, and you just kind of lose days and weeks. So it really depends on the time of the year, and what they're working on in that moment in time. But yeah, I mean, that's what a critical path is designed for. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a critical path before, but I can show you one of the. I can't show you one that I use in the industry, because obviously due to confidentiality, but I could create one and show you guys how to set a critical path up, so that you can send that over to a factory with your tech pack and your size chart, and it can really help them work towards deadline dates.
Yeah, that'd be really good, Emily. Maybe get you back in to do that for another workshop.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I think the
really
most important thing it is a relationship build as well.
Yeah.
I find that you do shortcut some of the red tape if you've got a good relationship, and they can fast track things. I always used to get my samples fast tracked because we got on well with the factory, and we were also channeling a lot of business their way, so they would turn up the sample around in 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I think, and I think as well, it depends what kind of product it is, and usually if they've got fabric to hand, they should be able to turn it around in 4 or 5 days, like Sarah's just mentioned. But if they have to source the fabric, then it takes them. It's a longer process, really. It's just nature of the industry.
So we've got some more questions. I think Teresa had a hand up, but it's gone back down. Did you have something to ask, Teresa?
It was just to say that would be just so helpful regarding that critical path. But also, I've never, obviously being a startup and not even started yet, I've never had to deal with the manufacturers, and it's quite daunting at the I wouldn't know what to say at the beginning, instead of waffling and then coming across as not as professional, to where then they can take the mick kind of thing. Is there some kind of not generic, so it sounds very not personal or whatever, but just a way to go to communicate what you want, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I understand. I know it can be quite daunting at the beginning, especially if it's a new supplier that you've never worked with before. But I think obviously the way to approach that would be just create an introduction email to just introduce yourself, maybe talk, give a short sentence or two about your business and what you're trying to achieve. And then if you've got a website or if you've got a LinkedIn or an Instagram page, put the link on the email so they can see this person is legit. They're talking about this brand that they're doing and this is what they're looking for. And as well, that gives them that helps them to create an idea of the type of product that you're trying to make as well. I know you'll be sending the tech packs, but just to have for them to visually see something that's a real life product, it just really helps that bit more. So yeah, I would definitely introduce yourself, talk about your brand or don't write a really long email, because factories, they don't have a lot of time. They just like it short, sweet. They just want you to be straight to the point. So don't blab on loads, just put a couple of sentences about your business and what you're wanting. And then you can forward your tech packs. If you sent a critical path as well at that same time, I think they'd be quite impressed by that, because they think, right, she knows what she's talking about. She's given us dates here as well to work towards. So yeah, anything that you can put in that first email to a factory, it will really help. And also, factories, they love relationships. And if you can say, your friends recommended you, and if you know someone who's used that factory before, then you really get into their good books. So yeah, anything like that, I think, hopefully you'd get a response from them and they'd help you.
Yeah, I was just about to add to that as well. There's a couple of things. We as a service can attend those first meetings with you. And we did it for Rion, and we have done it for people before. We can bridge that gap, because especially I've got a lot of manufacturing experience. So you take someone like me along, and that gives you that bit of credibility, and it kind of holds your hand a little bit. Also, it's what Emily was saying, is that tech pack is your communication piece with the factory. And don't be afraid to get an NDA signed as well, as a first stage, if you want to protect your designs. If your designs are something you want to protect, you can ask them to sign an NDA, and they will do that before you even communicate and send anything across. But yeah, I'm with Emily on everything she's just said. It's you get your tech pack, you get your critical path, and all of a sudden you've got their attention. They know that you know what you're doing. And that does change the relationship massively, doesn't it, Emily?
Yeah, massively, yeah. Yeah, that NDA form's a really good idea as well to send out at the beginning of a relationship, before you send your tech packs as well, probably, I would say.
Yeah, definitely before you send your tech packs, get that in place.
Yeah.
And some of them, and the ones that take you seriously will sign it, the ones don't, you move on, you find another factory.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a good factory will sign an NDA, in my opinion. They'll protect your designs. Yeah. Any other questions? But probably last question now for Emily. Anything you want to ask? I have recorded this, so we can send it out to you afterwards, so you can watch it back. And we will get Emily back for the critical part. Oh, Emily, yeah.
Sorry. I was just going to ask about when we did tech packs in first and second year, we had to do it was like a table where you measure every part of the garment and put it in like a table. So, like
a size chart.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's called a size. So for every design, you'll have a size chart, which is a totally different document to what I've just shown you tonight. Some brands add that on to the end of the tech pack, of the design pack, or people who throughout my whole 10 years, I've always sent a size chart in the same email with my tech pack, but it's just a separate document. And yeah, that's the measurements of the garment. So like the measurement of the sleeve, the neck, it's the breakdown of the product, of the measurements, basically.
Okay. I think it'd be good, Sarah, to have a session on that, if that's all right.
Yeah, we can do that and get Emily back. Not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just line it up again. Is everybody keen to do the critical path training?
Yes.
I think Emily's frozen.
I think that one would be quite useful.
Yeah. So okay then. So I'll get that onto that and get Emily back then. Looks like she's gone. So I'm going to stop recording now.